we will then go on the record this morning. This County Personnel Board here for the appeal hearing for Mr. Schneider, correct? For our first appellant this morning. I was brought up Baptist, and it's not natural to see this many people in one room without passing a collection plate. So have one handy. Let's get that out of the way right now. Everybody's going to do it. Okay. Anyway, since we have some new faces at the table today, I'd like to start at this table and just introduce ourselves really quickly. So
Erin Thompson from the law firm of Landis Gordon French, representing Nathan Schneider.
I'm Nathan Schneider.
Good morning.
He's Reeves.
Brenda Thompson.
Patrick Lane.
Fran Duval.
Joe Winter.
Amy Eford.
Nancy Jones representing the county.
George Recklewell, the Director of Public Protection for the county.
Ginger Hadley.
Tom Mudge, Human Resources Director for Volusia County.
All right, I assume we have some people who are going to be testifying today here. Would those people step forward, and if you're going to testify, I'd like to swear you in collectively, but maybe to save you a little bit of time. If you need to get out, you can just stand up in your place. You'll never get out of there.
He's going to have to leave until he testifies, so.
Pardon me?
He will have to leave until he testifies, so.
That's true. So if you want to start working your way towards the front, that would be all right.
I'm going to be the next person after me.
Well, until that time, you're going to need to stand outside. Okay, anyway, if you're going to testify, raise your hand and be sworn in, please. In the matter before us this morning, do you hereby solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I swear.
I swear.
I appreciate that. Great. Hands down, and if you are going to testify, I'm going to ask you to wait outside, yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Mr. West can stay because of the common testimony in the cases. I think if it's okay with his attorney, it would probably be.
Yes.
Who's staying? So for him to stay and hear the testimony.
Vote. That's fine with me.
Yeah. Yes.
Typically, we have this door shut. I don't know how that works in there.
I think it's blocked. I think it's blocked.
Because they were going out in the hall.
Yeah, they have chairs on. So the witnesses have to go far away to be
Yeah,
successful.
be shown. All right, well, let's wade in. Typically, we start with opening statement by both parties, so we'll ask the county to proceed.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Jones. I'm representing the county attorney's office in this matter and the Department of Public Protection. We spoke about this off the record before we got started, but for purposes of clarity of the record, I wanted to mention that we are handling two cases today involving the terminations of two employees from the Department of Public Protection. Both gentlemen are represented by Erin Thompson, so Ms. Thompson and I agreed that it would be appropriate to have the cases on the same day. They arose from the same internal investigation, so we felt it was appropriate and would be a better use of everyone's time because there was some common testimony to both cases. For purposes of keeping the record clear, however, we have agreed to separate the hearings somewhat, and we're doing Mr. Schneider's hearing first. And we'll allow you or ask you to deliberate at the conclusion of the evidence in his case and make your decision, and then we'll move into Mr. West's case so that everything is clear and clean for the record. So let me start off by speaking about the case involving Mr. Schneider. In August of 2004, a correctional officer named Charles Sella was injured at work. He slipped in the kitchen and injured his knee. He had an on-the-job injury. And did not return to work and wasn't cleared to return to work until November of 2012. So he was out of the workplace for a pretty good period of time. In November of 2012, when he was scheduled to return to work, he came in and filed a complaint against his captain, a captain by the name of Nina Hunter. He wrote a written complaint and he presented it to the supervisor that day. And in that complaint, he made some very serious allegations against Captain Hunter as to her actions on August the 4th when he was injured, as well as some things that he alleged occurred back in May, June, July timeframe when he was working on the unit and she was the supervisor. Based on the allegations, which as I said, were very serious, they were allegations of a sexual harassment nature, the information was provided to Mr. Rechtenwald, the Director of the Public Protection Department, who ordered that an internal investigation be conducted into these allegations regarding Captain Hunter. Mr. Sella was interviewed first in this internal affairs investigation, and he identified several people who he said were either in the room or nearby when these things occurred on August 4th. And so witness interviews were set up for these people. The investigation was being conducted by Captain David Vanis, who is the internal affairs investigator for the Department of Public Protection. Those of you that have been on the board for a while know that public protection includes corrections, fire, beach, medical examiner, I think a couple more. At any rate, so Captain Vanis does the internal investigations for all of those departments. One of the witnesses that was identified as having been present when Captain Hunter allegedly did the things Mr. Sella alleged was Officer Nathan Schneider. Officer Schneider had been an employee, I think, for about 11 years at that time, and so he was scheduled for a sworn interview. When he gave the sworn interview to Captain Vanis, he was asked, there were really two main areas that were alleged as to the August 4th incident with Captain Hunter. And that's really what we're focused on today, is what happened on August the 4th, not so much what allegedly happened earlier in the summer. And the allegations were that she had given Mr. Sella a wet willy. Everybody knows what a wet willy is. You stick your finger in your mouth and then in someone's ear. And that she had also licked the back of his head with her tongue. And that was the general nature of the allegations that were made by Mr. Sella against Captain Hunter. When Captain Vanis questioned Mr. Schneider about the events of August the 4th, he asked him some general questions initially, and Ms. Thompson and I have agreed that it would be beneficial for you to hear the actual taped interview, since this case has to do with falsehoods in sworn testimony. We think it's going to be beneficial for you to hear the actual taped interviews. They're not too long, and we believe that's what you should hear today. So without going into too much detail, Mr. Schneider gave a statement under oath in which he said that he did not see Captain Hunter lick the back of Mr. Sella's head, and he was fairly adamant about that was something he would remember because it's pretty significant. About 30 minutes after his interview concluded, he came back to Captain Vanis's office and asked to give another statement, and said he'd been thinking about it, he had some additional thoughts, he wanted to clear things up. And at this point, he testified that he was pretty sure he did remember Captain Hunter licking Sella. I think he did. I don't remember her licking his neck, though I remember her licking his head. So his testimony within a 30-minute period was completely opposite. Clearly that's a problem. You're dealing with a corrections officer. As with law enforcement officers, their testimony, their veracity is a very important quality. They are called on to testify in court if they are involved in any type of an inmate situation, if they're the victim of anything with an inmate, if the county is sued, their testimony in court could be very important to a case. So their credibility is a very important thing. Based on the inconsistencies in the two statements, Mr. Rechtenwald asked that an internal investigation be done of Mr. Schneider. Meanwhile, the Hunter internal investigation is still ongoing. At any rate, Mr. Schneider was re-interviewed on January the 18th. This was his third sworn interview, and at that time he was represented by counsel, and he stated that he did not physically see her lick him or her tongue touch his head or neck with regards to the licking. So his story then changed again from the second interview. And although he had said the first time he wasn't 100% sure whether or not she had given him a wet willy, the second time he said, I'm pretty sure she did try to give him one. And then finally, the third interview, he says, I did see her at one point attempt to give him a wet willy. So this is the crux of the case against Mr. Schneider. He has given 3 sworn statements under oath in which his testimony regarding what is a very material fact in the investigation of Captain Hunter changed. You will hear from Mr. Rechtenwald that the significance of that from the perspective of the Hunter investigation is that his testimony is essentially useless in that investigation. There is no way to determine for sure whether she committed these acts that were alleged by Sella, and because of the change in testimony by this witness. It was based on the discrepancies in the sworn statements that he was terminated for knowingly giving false statements to supervisors. As you know, your job is to determine whether the facts are proven, whether or not he did these things, and whether the discipline that was given in this case is consistent with other cases in the county where people have knowingly given false statements. That's the violation, one of the violations in this case, have been terminated or something else. So at the end of the day, we will ask you to find that he did in fact violate that merit rule and that the penalty is consistent with others in the county. Thank you.
Senior Officer Nathan Schneider is an 11-year, has an 11-year career with the department, and during that time, he has only 3 letters of reprimand in his personnel file, and the most recent of those was in 2007. So this is an excellent officer, and he reported to Captain Vanis in November and was being asked to provide very specific answers to some very general questions concerning an event that happened 109 days earlier. Now, I saw you chuckle a little bit concerning the wet willy, and there are some parts of this concerning the leg and the wet willy. I think you'll hear the word flatulating as we go through this. It's comical, but it's serious. It's comical only in the sense that in my workplace, and perhaps your workplace, these are things that would never, ever go on, and certainly would not be condoned. But what you'll hear in testimony is that in fact this behavior was a regular occurrence, and specifically was a regular occurrence by Captain Hunter. So when Nathan Schneider is being asked to specify whether certain events happened 109 days earlier, you will hear in his answers and the tone of his voice that he's just not sure. And he's not hiding something, and he's not trying to be untruthful. But when something happens on such a regular occurrence, it's kind of hard to separate whether it happened on that particular day. When the actual audio is played, I'm going to ask you to really listen and pay attention to how Nathan Schneider is answering these questions. There are going to be a lot of, In fact, I think I counted 17 in the first interview alone. This is a man who walked into an interview having no idea what he was going to be asked. And he in fact says, I have no clue why I'm here. And he's originally asked concerning Officer Stella's injury. And his very first answer is, I didn't see it, I wasn't there. Now he's thinking, is this a workers' comp claim? I don't know if there was a puddle or not a puddle. So again, he's not being given any real specifics as to what it is that he's being asked. And I want you to really pay attention to how quickly Captain Vanis, by the questions that he asks, or by his statements, he turns Nathan Schneider into a defensive position. Very quickly, Captain Vanis says, you know I spoke to other people, and you know I have other statements, so I just want you to be real honest. And in that moment, Nathan Schneider, who walks in as a witness and still has no idea why he's there, his back's in the corner. So pay attention to the indecisiveness and how largely non-committal Mr. Schneider is in his original interview. And also can keep in mind that within 33 minutes of leaving, Mr. Schneider goes to the mess hall, he sits down by himself, he has his head down on the table, and he's replaying the events of that morning, 109 days ago. He's replaying the details that Captain Vanis has just given to him during this interview. We have a witness statement. It's actually this, I believe, the secretary in Captain Vanis's office who says she saw him sitting by himself with his head down, and he's thinking. He has no cell phone. He will tell you he spoke to no one, he called no one, but he sat there and he had his memory refreshed. And he voluntarily goes back to the IA office, voluntarily goes back and wants to see Captain Vanis again because he's remembered things. Things are coming back. Okay, yes, I can definitely separate this day from a different day. And he goes back in and tries to clarify. And when you listen to that second interview, again, I want you to pay attention to times when you hear Mr. Schneider, he's thinking, he's coming up with an answer, and he gets cut off. He doesn't specifically get to answer or address certain elements. And these are things that I hope that you will pay attention to because they're important. Most importantly, at the end of the first interview, where Mr. Schneider is largely non-committal as to what he remembers, he specifically asked Captain Vanis, if I remember something, can I come back in here? And Captain Vanis says, absolutely. Here's my business card. So, Mr. Schneider, believing that he can do that, he needs to go and kind of think this through a little bit, he does exactly what he's told he's allowed to do. He comes back in and he attempts to clarify. And because of that, he has been terminated. I suggest that his answers have remained consistent with the exception of one statement in that second interview. In my closing, I'll go through and show you why he has remained consistent, but listen to the words that he uses. I don't know, I don't remember, I'm pretty sure. That, admittedly, not a great witness, okay? Not a great witness, but that is not the foundation for termination. I'm going to let the actual interviews speak for themselves.
All right, very good. Where are we headed next?
Captain Vanis.
Witness. Good morning. I'll remind you were sworn in earlier and ask you to state your name for the record, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Captain David Vanis.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Captain Vanis, what is your occupation?
I am a lifeguard supervisor or captain of Volusia County Beach Safety, and I am the acting internal affairs investigator for the Department of Public Protection.
How long have you been employed with Volusia County?
17 years.
And just to make sure that your position is clear, your assignment is to the beach department, but you have in an acting capacity to the Department of Public Protection as an internal affairs investigator.
Yes, ma'am.
And how long have you been doing that job?
Approximately a year and a half now.
Do you have training and experience in investigation?
Yes, ma'am.
You attended schools and things like that to learn how to do investigations?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to draw your attention to the time frame of November 2012 and ask you if you were directed to open and conduct an internal investigation of Corrections Captain Nina Hunter.
Yes, ma'am.
And who directed you to do that?
Director Moore.
Can you tell the board what the general nature of the allegations were against Captain Hunter and where they came from?
Officer Charles Sella submitted a complaint to his warden that on the morning of, I believe it was August 4th, 2012, that he had a slip and fall injury in the kitchen area of the jail, the jail. And Sergeant West had taken him to the shift commander's office to complete paperwork in regards to risk management paperwork, workers' comp paperwork. While in there, Captain Hunter began taunting him. She gave him a wet willy, stuck her finger in her mouth and put it in his ear, and flatulated on him and licked his head and neck area.
Did you in fact open an internal investigation into these allegations?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you interview Mr. Sella, the complainant in the case?
Yes, ma'am.
And in the course of your interview with Mr. Sella, did he identify witnesses that could corroborate his allegations or who may have seen something in the August 4th in that shift commander's office?
Yes, he did.
Were Nathan Schneider and Ben West witnesses that he identified?
Yes, ma'am.
This hearing is about the actions of both Schneider and West. Right now, I don't think you're in there, we talked about the fact that we're handling Mr. Schneider's appeal at this point, so most of my questions now will be directed to the actions of Mr. Schneider rather than both of them. Okay? Did you interview Nathan Schneider as part of the Hunter Internal Affairs investigation?
I did.
And when did you first interview him?
First interview was on November 20th,
About what time?
9:46.
Was that interview recorded?
It was recorded.
Was Officer Schneider placed under oath?
He was.
We'd like to play the first interview at this time.
Schneider Hearing, the Volusia County Department of Public Protection Internal Affairs Unit. Today's date is November 20, 2012.
Transcripts. They're transcripts of for the board. So, and want to introduce them into evidence as county exhibit 1. I apologize for that. Can everybody hear that all right? When
Yeah,
you
is that
switch it on?
okay?
So far, so good.
I'm Captain Vance, the Volusia County Department of Public Protection Internal Affairs Unit. Today's date is November 20, 2012. The time is now 09:46 hours. Interviewing Officer Schneider today in the Internal Affairs Office. Sir, could you please state your name?
Nathan Schneider,
What's your current position at John Title?
Senior Correctional Officer,
Okay. How long have you been employed with corrections?
approximately 11 years.
All right, sir, what's a home address for you? All right. You're hereby advised that you're being interviewed as part of an official administrative investigation being conducted by the Volusia County Department of Public Protection Internal Affairs Unit. You'll be asked questions specifically directed and narrowly related to the performance of your official duties and your fitness for continued employment. You're entitled to all the rights and privileges guaranteed by the laws of the Constitution of the state and the Constitution of the United States, including the right not to be compelled to incriminate yourself. I'm further advising you that if you refuse to testify or to answer questions relating to the performance of your official duties or fitness for continued employment, it will be considered an act of insubordination, a violation of a direct order given by a superior or competent authority. If you do answer, either your statements or any information or evidence that is gained by reason of such statements can be used against you in any subsequent criminal proceeding. These statements may be used against you in relation to division or disciplinary action. Please be advised that this is an active and open internal affairs investigation. I'm directing you not to discuss any part of this investigation or this interview with anyone other than your representative until this case comes to a close. Do you understand that you'll be providing a sworn statement today?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you swear to affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Do you have any questions about what I just read to you?
No.
Pretty much what it says is, you know, like we talked about before, you're gonna answer the questions, and you can't be charged for anything. But the most important part I want you to remember about this, what I just read is, do not discuss any part of this interview or this investigation with anybody until it's closed. Try to keep this stuff confidential.
Will they notify us when it's closed, or?
Maybe.
Not that I'm trying to tell anybody, but
No, I don't think you know what it's about right now, do you?
I have no clue.
All right. Are you familiar with Officer Sell?
So, yes,
Do you work with him? Or did you work with him?
I have, yeah.
Do you remember when you heard his name? Were you working that night? Morning?
I came in that morning. I wasn't there when he heard it or nothing. I was just, I was in the office as
Oh, you were at the office?
finishing up the stuff.
When he was doing paperwork?
I don't remember if if he was doing the paperwork or they were just finishing up.
Okay, whose office was it?
The ship commander's office,
And who was that?
Captain Hunter.
Did you hear Officer Sella, Captain Hunter, have any kind of conversation, any kind of interaction while you were in the office?
I'm sure they did, nothing that really stands out.
Nothing you remember? Did you, what were they doing? Did you see any kind of action, any kind of interaction between them? Anything that stands out?
Sorry, specifically?
Yeah, anything that sticks out in your head? Nothing out of the ordinary?
No,
Okay.
nothing that I can recall anyway. This was a few months ago. so-
Right, that was a few months ago. Did you see Captain Hunter taunt or try to make light off for Sella's injuries at all?
I can't remember any, like, specifics. I mean, but, there was a little bit, like I said, I can't remember any exact words or anything like that, but, it was the normal, just like when anybody has like an OJI kind of slip and fall, everybody kind of gets razzed about it a little bit.
You don't remember anything specifically?
Nothing specific, no.
Okay. Remember, you're not the first person I've interviewed about this, and I do have other statements, okay? So
Okay, that's
please
great.
remember, be honest.
I'm being totally honest.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Right, yeah, no, I'm not trying to hold anything back. It's just, you gotta understand that the time of the morning, it's 5:15 in the morning, right? And, I was probably still, still kind of getting going in the morning. I'm in the office, it's been months ago.
You don't recall anything inappropriate between Officer Sella and Captain Hunter?
Nothing that's coming out, like, if you can ask me specific things, like,
I'm going through.
if she did this, did she do that, that might help me. Because I'll tell you, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, she did do that, but nothing that I was like, oh hey, I can't believe she's doing that, let me put this in the memory bank so we can use it for, investigation later or anything.
Okay. Did you see Captain Hunter lick her finger and place it in Officer Sella's ear? Wet Willie?
She might have. I'm not 100% sure, but I do recall.
Remember anything else you might have done like that?
No, nothing that's coming to mind. But did she move? I can't be 100% that she did.
Okay.
But it doesn't sound like it would be like totally out of the ordinary.
It
But
sounds like something that, she could have done.
correct.
Okay. You see Captain Hunter place her rear end on Officer Sella and actually.
I don't remember, but that sounds like something she would do, yes.
You don't remember if she did that?
Not specifically that, at that time, no.
Okay. Did you see Captain Hunter lick Officer Sella's neck and head?
No.
No. You don't remember her saying anything? Any comments then? Do you remember who else was in the office with you?
Sergeant West, because I think he was helping until they do the paperwork.
Remember Sergeant West saying anything, Ken?
We're, like I said, Part of me doesn't, like, I understand they call me and I'm a witness, whatever. But like, when I come in the morning, I'm not just like in the office and hang out there. I'm in and out because they have as an early feed, we're escorting cards to the units. We're doing other stuff. Okay. So I'm coming in and out of the office.
All right, I'm going to read you a little bit of Officer Shell's complaint here. A few moments later, she pushed her behind him against my back and flatulated on me. Immediately following the flatulation incident, she placed her tongue on the back of my lower neck and ran up the back of my scalp. After this disturbing act, she then made a spitting sound and said, "Tasted salty." Sergeant West asked Captain Hunter to leave the guy alone. He's heard. Captain Hunter again left the office, one of Sergeant West. Sergeant Owens and I continued searching for the flash drive for the revised entry report. Officer Schneider was in the office at this time and just stared at me in disbelief.
I don't remember her liking him. I really don't remember specifically that she flatulated on him. I mean, that's, I've seen her do it before. Not look at anybody, I've never seen her look at anybody before, but, yeah.
And so you didn't hear Sergeant West ask her to leave the guy alone? He's heard.
If I did, I honestly don't remember.
Anybody else in the office? Other than Sergeant West and Settle?
Any of the other early kids that came in could have been in and out of there. It would have been, at the time, it could have been, just said Wood, Sterling, they could have come and gone. Any of the other sergeants could have been in there.
Like, who would be some other sergeants?
I'm trying to think who was it. I want to say Sergeant Wallenstein, maybe Sergeant Wattups. Yeah, I think
So, you remember being in the office when he was there doing
I
it, or
remember.
you just don't remember anything that happened, pretty much what you're saying? You're saying some of the things I've asked you wouldn't be out of the ordinary, but you don't
Correct,
remember.
but yeah, the incident wasn't big enough for me to really dwell on it, is what I'm saying.
How long have you worked here again? I'm sorry.
About 11 years.
11 years, so you put some time in here.
Yeah.
Have you worked for Captain Hunter before?
Yeah.
Okay, you obviously seem to kind of know her and kind of know
Right.
what to expect out of her. Have you ever heard her make inappropriate comments to you or anybody else?
Nothing that I would find.
Anything rude, offensive, sexually explicit, anything like that?
Nothing more than anybody else around here does. We're all pretty, everybody can kind of be that way at times. It's how you deal with stuff in a stressful job. You'll make rude comments to each other. We're all pretty thick-skinned. Nothing's really sacred around here. There's a lot of low blows that go on, but it's all in, what do you call it?
Joking?
Joking, I mean, I think anybody if there's at any point in time, anybody kind of looks like they're truly offended, people stop. I mean, it's just kind of how we deal with it. So, I mean, have I heard her say things? Yes.
Is it things you want her to say around your mother, your grandmother?
I'm kind of, nothing really, that stuff doesn't say me either, so I talk the same way around my mother and father and grandmother that I do here, so. Yeah, I mean, as far as that kind of stuff goes, and that's probably why I honestly can't remember, because nothing really, after being here 11 years, nothing anybody says or does in these offices really surprises me anymore. Everything's just kind of, it's just another day at the jail, and that's probably why, like I said, if I'd have seen her looking, that would have definitely stood out. I mean, because that's kind of like, wow, you know, but.
You don't recall that at all?
No, I don't.
Does Captain Hunter ever talk about her sex life
Yes.
in detail or just generally speaking?
It's hit and miss sometimes. She'll go into some details.
Did anybody else talk about this incident with you?
No.
No.
I honestly had no clue what it was about until I came in here today. When they called me and told me it was for the night, I literally been walking and going, what's going on? And that's kind of like one of the worst things I think that they can do is, because this was like 2 weeks ago, when they call and tell you, hey, you're part of an investigation. You can't talk about it to nobody.
That wasn't my decision.
Oh, okay. Because I'm just like, because the first thing you want to do now is,
Figure out what it's about.
yeah, but what the hell's going on, you know, so.
All right, do you know any reason Officer Sullivan would want to get Captain Hunter in trouble? You know any kind of history between them?
No. I know Sella isn't the type, he doesn't like joke around a lot. I mean, he, I mean, I can understand how, like, some of the stuff that goes on, he's not as a crew, I guess, as a lot of us are. So he takes it, you know, he'll take offense and, like, to a lot more stuff than a lot of the others would.
All right, well, anything else you want to add?
I'm sorry I couldn't, like, give you more or whatever, but I honestly don't
If
really.
you don't remember, you don't remember.
Yeah.
Or if you didn't see something, you didn't see something. I'm just gonna reiterate that what was said in here today, what we talked about, the incident, anything, does not leave this office until this investigation. If you're dying to get it out of you, you wanna talk about it, come back and ask me if it's done, or ask Ms. B or somebody. But we're not.
Yeah,
This is a very sensitive topic, and we don't want to.
Absolutely.
Doesn't need to be outside anybody that's involved with it, doesn't need to know about it.
Okay.
Well, if you've got nothing else to add, no questions for me?
No, if I, for whatever reason, I mean, I can't say that I would, but if I do remember anything, should I get back in touch with you?
Absolutely, I'll give you my card and contact information. All right? Well, the time is now 10:02 hours, we're going to be off the record.
Dr. Dennis, why did you give Mr. Schneider the rights that you gave him at the beginning of this interview? He was just a witness at that point, correct?
Right. I make it a standard practice to give it to anybody that I'm interviewing and say, it's called guarantee warning, because it pretty much says that they can't be charged criminally. Or anything that they say, that nothing in that interview will be used against them criminally, because we are making them talk to us because they're important. So a forced interview can't be used criminally against them because of my decision.
So you're required to give them that warning in case, because they're mandated to give you a statement in an administrative interview, correct?
Correct.
Did this interview take place at the jail, at the workplace where Mr. Schneider works?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. During the interview, you tell him at one point, you tell him, remember, you're not the first person I've interviewed about this. I do have other statements, okay? Why did you tell him that?
Just prior to that, I had interviewed Sergeant West, and he was also in the office with Officer Sell and Officer Schneider, and had witnessed, or had told me that he had witnessed Captain Hunter with Officer Sell's head.
So you had some evidence already that was contradicting what Mr. Schneider was telling you?
Correct.
After you concluded this interview, when did you next have contact with Mr. Schneider?
Shortly after the interview, within 45 minutes after the interview, Benita McLeod, my staff assistant in the jail, does a transcribe, and she contacted me and said Officer Schneider stopped by. He said he added some things that he needed to add to his statement.
Okay.
That's why he come back.
So it was the same, it was within the 45 minutes of his first interview, of the end of his first interview?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so then did you meet with him again at that point and take another sworn statement on him? And was he placed under oath for that second statement?
He was.
I'd like to play the second interview.
This is Captain Manis, Volusia County Department of Public Protection and Internal Affairs Unit. Today's date is November 20th, 2012. Time is now 11:13 hours. I'm back interviewing Officer Schneider in reference at his request. And Officer Schneider, you've already been read your Gary warning today and signed your Gary warning. Do you understand everything that was involved in that? I'm going to swear you in again. If you raise your right hand, please. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. All right, Officer Schneider, you called me back in here. You wanted to add a couple things to your statement. Could you please go ahead and...
After we got done, I started to replay the morning in my head again, kind of slowly, and I do remember her saying something about him tasting salty and spitting it out. So I'm pretty sure I do remember her looking at him now.
Okay, so
It was like
you remember who looking at?
Captain Hunter looking Officer Sella.
Did you witness her looking at?
That I don't remember. I think I did. I think he was sitting in the chair. I don't remember her looking at his neck though. I remember her looking like his head.
Looking at his head?
Yeah, because he's got a shaved head.
Okay.
And then her spitting it out and going, oh, you taste salty. I do remember that now.
Okay. And do you remember anything else that was said?
No, that was it, but I mean,
Do you remember any other interactions between the two of them?
and I'm pretty sure she did try to give him a wet willy at one point. I think it was before that.
Okay.
But yeah, but that was like the only thing that really came to mind after we started talking. I started thinking back, and I'm like, yeah, actually, I do remember her, and I do remember kind of being a little shocked.
Did you say anything to Officer Sala about that or nothing?
I don't believe so. I think it was just kind of like, wow, I can't believe she just licked you.
Did you say anything to any of your supervisors or anything?
No, I didn't.
Who was your sergeant at the time?
At that time it was, I want to say it was Sergeant J. Brown.
Because you were just coming on.
I was just coming on.
And they were
my
just getting on.
official sergeant wasn't there yet. He doesn't come on until 8 o'clock. Being an early feed post, I come in at 5:15 to 5:30.
So you're kind of like a sweet shit.
Exactly.
Cover the gas.
Right, and that's why I say when we first get here, I mean, it's early, so I'm still working, sometimes working the cobwebs out, before we get rolling.
Okay.
But, yeah, I do remember her looking at him. And,
Do you remember his reaction to it?
He didn't get I don't remember him getting too upset, yelling or anything like that. But I do remember, it seemed like a normal reaction to somebody was, looking. I don't think it was like a sexual thing. I mean, it didn't seem like sexual to me. It was just, I think, if I remember it correctly, it was just, she was just messing, the whole wet willy thing. And Stella's he's a real germaphobe, when it comes to dealing with anything.
Right.
And I think it was more her just trying to, gross him out or whatever, looking somebody, especially for him, and anything to do with any kind of saliva. And I mean, he really goes over the top with it as far as, washes, he's almost, OCD is how clean and stuff like that is. He wipes his station down 4 or 5 times a day. I mean, it's just very, but yeah, I'm fairly certain it wasn't anything sexual in nature. It was her trying to gross him out more. But I do remember her looking at him and then the wet willies. So if I remember correctly, I mean, he didn't just sit there and like, oh, that's cool or nothing, but yeah, it was just like, oh, that's gross. What are you doing?
Did you say that or just had that kind of look on his face?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was just that kind of look, or and I'm sure he did say something like, what are you doing? Kind of, or that's gross, or.
You remember anybody else saying anything?
I don't. Yeah, but
What about her flatulence? Do you remember that at all? Or?
Specifically that morning, no. But like I said, that's not something that she hasn't done before.
Wouldn't be uncommon, but you don't remember it
Specifically
at
that
that
moment,
moment.
correct.
All right, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it.
All right, time is now 11:18, and we're going to be over it.
So during the first interview, he didn't recall anything out of the ordinary occurring on office support between Seller and Hunter, is that correct?
Correct.
And couldn't remember any specifics? Correct.
Correct.
But then, during that first interview, you asked him to give specifics, and you actually read Sellers' complaint to him, and he still adamantly denied seeing Captain Hunter lick Seller, didn't he?
Right.
And he told you that if he had seen her lick him during the first interview, that would be definitely something that would have stood out to him.
Right.
As to the allegation of Hunter giving Stella a wet willy, during the first interview, he was unsure, is that right?
Right, he was unsure. He said it wouldn't be out of the ordinary, but he wasn't positive that happened that one.
And then during the second interview, he said it did happen, or he was pretty sure it did happen. When you took the second interview from Mr. Stella, did it concern you?
It did, because during the first interview, he was pretty adamant about if he had witnessed her lick his Officer Sell's head, then that would be something that would stand out, and then all of a sudden, an hour later, he remembers it.
And at this point, you're in the process of investigating allegations against Captain Hunter, right? What did you do after you took the second interview from Mr. Schneider in light of the inconsistencies?
I notified Mr. Rickmore
And
of
what,
the inconsistencies between the two interviews,
what did he tell you to do?
to initiate an internal affairs investigation on Officer Schneider.
And did you do that?
I did.
Did you serve him with notice as required by the statute? And then did you interview him a third time?
Yes, ma'am.
And the third interview actually was his subject officer interview in his internal investigation, is that right?
Right, this is a separate investigation. He is the officer, he is the subject officer in that investigation.
At this point in time, prior to taking that third interview, had you been able to reach based on any of the testimony, had you been able to reach a definitive conclusion about what had happened in the office on the morning of August the 4th? Did you feel confident?
I felt confident that Captain Hunter had licked Officer Sell's head and had given him a wet willy and flatulated on him.
And at that point, was that based on West's testimony?
It was based on, what's named as circumstances.
Did you feel at that point like you were in a position to be able to utilize Officer Schneider's testimony in the Hunter IA prior to taking that third interview?
Not really, due to the inconsistencies between the two interviews. Obviously, I wanted to be able to use his testimony, but there were too many problems with it.
And you ultimately took a third interview from him. Did you place him under oath at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
And was he represented by counsel during that interview?
Yes, ma'am.
Play the third interview.
Sorry. Ms. Thompson.
This is Captain Bannister, Volusia County Department of Public Protection, Internal Affairs Unit. Today's date is January 18th, 2013, located at the Volusia County Branch Jail in conducting an interview today in relation to internal affairs case number IA 2014-01-3144. We'll just double check on that. That's what you got, all right, 314. Just want to make sure we have that. Conducting an interview today with Officer Nathan Schneider. Sir, could you state your name, your rank, and contact information for him?
Senior Correctional Officer Nathan Schneider,
And how long have you been employed with the position for?
approximately 11 years.
And as you have a representative of the company today. Ma'am, could you identify yourself?
Erin Thompson, on behalf of Linda Screen French.
Okay. You understand it's going to be a sworn statement, sir?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Would you raise your right hand for me? Do you swear or affirm that the statement you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, sir, you're hereby advised that you're being interviewed as part of an official administrative investigation being conducted by the Volusia County Department of Public Protection Internal Affairs Unit. You will be asked questions specifically directed and narrowly related to the performance of your official duties and fitness for continued employment. You are entitled to all the rights and privileges guaranteed by the laws of the Constitution of this state and the United States, including the right not to be compelled to incriminate yourself. I'm further advising that if you refuse to testify or to answer questions relating to the performance of your official duties and fitness for your continued employment, that will be considered an act of insubordination and punishable by up to termination. If you do answer neither of your statements or any information or evidence that is gained by reason of such statements can be used against you in any subsequent criminal proceeding. These statements may be used against you in relation to divisional disciplinary actions. Be advised that this is an active and open internal affairs investigation. I'm directing you not to discuss any part of this investigation with anyone other than your representative until this case comes to a close. Do you understand?
Yes.
What I just said?